Welcome to this tips and tricks video from My Favorite Things. In this video, we're going to be doing the rock and roll stamping technique. This is a fun and easy way to add shading and dimension to your stamp designs by adding more than one ink color to your stamp before actually stamping it onto the paper. For this technique, you're going to need two different ink colors, both the same ink color family, but one in a lighter color and one in a darker color. And you're going to start off by first covering the entire stamped image with a lighter color of ink. Once you have the stamp fully covered in the lighter color of ink, you're going to take the stamp and gently rock and roll the outside edges onto the darker ink pad to add color just to the outside edges. When you stamp your image into the darker color of ink, be careful not to stamp the entire image into the ink pad, as it will completely transfer the darker color ink to the entire stamp. Holding the acrylic block at a slight angle and slightly rocking and rolling it into the ink is what allows you to get this great outside variation in the darker color to contrast with the lighter color of ink on the inside area of the stamp. You can see here as I'm stamping it off onto the paper, I have that great lighter green image on the inside with the darker green image on the outside. This creates a lot of depth and dimension on the final stamp design and makes the leaves look completely realistic. I'm lifting the ink pad here so you can kind of see as I'm adding the ink that I'm just tilting the stamp on its side and rolling it and rocking it into the ink pad and transferring that darker color ink to the outside. This technique works really well with any type of solid image stamp. I'm going to go ahead and repeat the same process with a different stamp. I'm now using a flower, and I'm going to use some pink colored inks to do the rock and roll technique. I first stamped my flower design into the lighter pink color first, and then I used the same rock and roll method to add the darker color of pink ink onto the outside area of the flower petals. If you're unsure how much ink you've added to your stamp, simply lift it up and look at the bottom area directly where you apply the ink, and you can get an idea of how much dark color you've added to the outside area. If you feel like you still need more than what you've done, you can simply put it back into the dark color of ink and rock and roll it until you get the desired color. If you feel like you've added too much ink, you can just simply take all of the ink off and start over by adding the lightest color first and then rocking it into the darker color ink once again. Once you do this technique a couple of times, you'll get a feel for how much ink you want to apply to the edges. Thanks so much for joining us for this rock and roll stamping tips and tricks video from My Favorite Things.